What's up, everybody? Sparrowwood here from Sleepless Nights with another episode on Space Engineers, and we are hit with yet another update. So far, they've done really good at maintaining the whole Thursday update thing. And this time, you'll notice... what is this? Blues and green, reactor platforms in green, reds and green. Why is it in green, you may ask? Well, that is the beauty of this update. Something that many have wanted for a long time. And they finally got it. Drum roll. Factions. That's right. You can make factions now. This doesn't really impact you too much if you're playing on a single player world, but for multiplayer it's huge and it's awesome. So there's not a ton of stuff in this update, but there's a lot to go over, because it kind of changes a lot of things. So you have a faction tab now. So let's just say we create one. So you have a tag which can consist of 3 letters. We're going to do SKS for Sleepless Nights. And let's just say Sleepless Nights. I can't spell, it's late. Studios. And then you can do public info. This is public. And private info. We will destroy all other factions. But see, it's private, so only members can see that, which is cool. Now, unfortunately, due to the timing and stuff like that, I didn't have Baseplay KG or Adrian Wannafly available to help demonstrate. But that's fine. So basically, we have a faction now, so anything in green is friendly to your faction. Wait, no, that is your faction. Excuse me, my bad. So anything green is your faction, right? So the platform, the red one, and the blue 2 are the faction of Sleepless Nights now. Anything that comes up white, so like if you had a beacon that was white, would be an ally faction. Anything that is red, so any of the names that come up in red, are either an enemy faction or an unknown. That's important because I mistook that originally for always an enemy, and that's not the case. It is enemy or unknown. So basically, you have your faction tab, so you can click on this. Other people can click on this, and they can see the public info. They cannot see the private, and since I am a founder, I can edit all of this information. Now, if you were another player, you could click on this tab, and I don't know where the button is because I have not done it before, but you could click on it, and there's a basically a request to join, and then when you come into this tab under the members, there would be one that says like request or application or something to that extent. Again, without a second player here to demonstrate, it's kind of difficult to show you exactly how it works. But basically, as a founding member or a leader, I believe founding members and leaders can pick. They can basically accept or decline applied members to whether they want to do it or not. Now, you can click on a member, and you can kick them, you can promote them, you can demote them. Now, there's 3 ranks. There's member, leader, and founder. Founder obviously has full control. They can do whatever they want. A leader can promote members, they can kick members, and I believe they can demote other leaders. I don't know if they can kick other leaders or not. I think they can, but I'm not sure. They cannot, however, mess with the founder of the clan or the faction. And then the member is the lowest ranking, to which they can't, you know, tamper with anything that is a leader or higher. They're kind of just there. Now, with multiple factions, you could click on a faction and you can propose peace. Were you at war with them? Or you can declare war. Now, it's important to note, this is something that was in the Keen Software update video. If you declare war on a faction, they do not have to accept. It's simply saying, we're declaring war on you. The proposed peace, they have to accept that. And that would change them from a red faction when you saw all of their icons or beacons or anything like that. Excuse me. That would change them from red to white if they accepted your peace declaration and you no longer are at each other's throats as soon as you see people. Now, a lot of you might be wondering, what does this actually do other than just identify people from different factions on a multiplayer server? Well, it does a couple of things, the biggest of which is sharing, which should be the next on this list. Faction, ownership of blocks, yes. So the ownership part is kind of tricky. So now when you go into anything, you go into the control panel. Let's just click on the grinder, for example, or the grinders, so it's any of these. It says owner, no one, and no share. When owner is set to nobody, anybody can use it. So there's no sharing option. You can just and anybody can just walk up and use it. When you set it to me, are you sure you want to change the owner? Yes. So now I am the owner of this cargo container, right? Now, there's two tricky parts to this. The first part is that now no one else can use it because it is defaulting to a no-share situation, which you can share with your faction to where anyone that's part of your group can use it, or you can share with all. In that case, it doesn't matter that you're the owner, anyone else can go use it. Oh wait, no. I'm sorry, the assembler is what I'm talking about, not this cargo container. I was just using that. I was talking about the assembler, which is where? Where did they put the assembler? Where did it go? Oh, here it is. Okay. So the assembler is what we're dealing with. Now it is currently set to no share. Now what I don't know, the refinery should be set to nobody. Okay? So anything that is set to me will work for me, right? But I don't think... Okay, it is still working with it set to nobody. Now, if someone were to go along and set some of these cargo containers to other things... See, if I set them all to me, it won't matter. It will still work. That's, again, another thing where it's difficult to use as an example without a second person to show it off. But if, say, Adrian or bass player came through and set it to them, I couldn't then use whatever's in this crate. If my memory serves, if I'm remembering that right, anything that's set to no share, I can't have access to this, so my assembler that's set to me won't work. It won't pull in anything from these cargo crates. So that's a big deal. The other big deal is ships. Again, I can't really show it because I'm playing by myself. But were you to go into the control panel and set all of the cockpits to me, right? So all the cockpits are set to me, but bass player or Adrian goes through and sets them to the reactors, the thrusters, any of that stuff to them. I cannot use that. So it's important when flying a ship to make sure you have it set up the way that you want it. Otherwise you can get into some issues. Now obviously you can fix this for like a group. I could set, if I'm building a ship, I could set all of that to me, but just set it to share with faction, make sure they're part of the faction, then they can fly the ships too. This would be good on a multiplayer server, because then it's like nobody could fly into your base and steal your ships, essentially, because they wouldn't work for them. Now there is, you may have noticed on the changelog, a hack and takeover of hostile objects. So let's say faction B, right, is the enemy and they are not an allied faction. They can technically hack my stuff because anything that has a computer. Alright, and I'm gonna need a welder and a grinder for this example. So when we weld, you'll see that there's a kind of a purpley line now instead of just a red and a blue line. That's wherever the computer component comes into play. Let's see if we can't grab something else that has a better example of it. Okay, there's a good one. So the red line is the hull integrity, which we've seen in survival. So I can grind this, right? And when it gets past the red line, it's not usable anymore. Okay? Not usable. Now let's get it past there just for a second because I need to change something. So this is cockpit 3. So I'm setting this to me with no share. Okay? Now if I get out and I grind this again, so it's not usable now, but there's a blue line now. That's where the computers go. Okay? The computer component right under display. Anything that has a computer in it is ownable. Like it's you can set the ownership. When you grind it past that blue light or blue line, you've removed all the computers. Okay? Now if I put all this back and I put the computers back in myself, I don't know if it'll show an actual example of it because it's the same person that did it. No. Okay, no change. But if you were to grind the thing down to the computer level and then walk away, or I walk away, and you come back with your own computer components and you weld this back together past the blue line, the ownership automatically becomes yours. So that's a big thing that you can go along to anything that has a computer component, grind it down to the blue line, repair it, and it will now become your object. So you could take over enemy objects and things of that nature through that means. Whoops, that was one too many. So that's how you hack things, is you basically dismantle them past the blue line and then put computers back into it, and it'll automatically default back to your object. I believe in creative mode everything defaults to nobody, but I think, I may be getting this wrong, but I believe in survival mode, or multiplayer mode, or whatever, I believe it all defaults to whoever builds the computer component, and that's pivotal to the hacking procedure as far as if someone comes along and takes the computers out and puts their own in, then it becomes their object. It doesn't just turn off the ownership, it changes the ownership to yours, is how I understood it from the update changelog thing. So block sharing, we kind of already went over that you can basically just share other things to either your faction or everyone. This keeps the ownership the same, but it allows other players to interact with them and use them, such as ships, things like that. So if you're on a multiplayer server, it'd be very important to make sure that everything is set to like faction and share with faction and things like that, so that nothing gets confused or destroyed or unusable. A new feature that doesn't really relate to the faction feature is the copy and paste. Now when you copy and paste things, you'll notice the little blue cube comes up because now you can rotate it before you paste it, which is very useful. It's very neat because you don't have to try and fly your character around or line things up or whatever. You can kind of just set them how you want it. It's a feature I've wanted for a while for building and things like that, so I'm glad they added that. Looting dead engineers is a new thing in survival mode. If an engineer dies, you can run up to them for, I believe it's 5 minutes, the corpse will stay, and you can run up to them and hit, I believe it's the interaction key. It may be the, I think it's T, it may be K, if you're going like right into the inventory and it'll show up over here. I don't know. I think it's K actually to interact with their inventory, but you can take their drills or guns, ammo, whatever they had on them when they died. So that's useful. The last thing, it's not in the changelog for some reason, but one of the new features also is when you die. I can't readily display this in creative mode, but when you die, a new list of respawn med bays come up. So say there's a med bay in red 1 on the platform and in blue 2, and I die, each one of those med bays will come up and you can select which one you want to respawn at. It is important though, med bays can be shared. Okay, so ownership, nobody, share with my faction. This is super important. If there is no... Okay, let me see if I can remember how this goes. If there's no med bay that is shared with you, okay? So if this med bay is set to one person, or share with a faction that you're not part of, and you die, and this is the only medbay in the game world, you can't respawn here because it's not shared with you. So you'll be forced to respawn in a respawn ship, which we saw in a previous update, and it was the Betsy Mark I in my survival Let's Play when I started, was a respawn ship. Now, some people would say, what's the big deal, because you're just respawning in a ship like you normally do, except you change to a completely different astronaut by game standards. The problem with this, and where this gets really sticky, is that all of the things your previous astronaut built is owned by them. So if you did not change all of the ownership to either nobody or share with everybody, and then you die and you come back as a new astronaut, you can't interact with those parts. You can't change the ownership because the owner died. It's a separate astronaut by game mechanics. So it can be really bad if you die and you don't have an available medbay that is shared with your character, because it's essentially like losing your inventory, if you will. If you had everything stored in a crate, you can't interact with the crate, you can't get stuff, because it's not set to... Now granted, if all the items are set to nobody or, you know, whatever, to where there's no sharing restrictions, it's not a big deal. But if you're playing on a multiplayer server where there's factions and you've got different members of the factions building individual personalized stuff and everybody's got their own gear and ships and stuff, this can become a really big problem if you die. So make sure that if you're set up on a multiplayer server and you've got a faction setup going on, or things of that nature, make sure that you have at least one main medical unit, medical point. What are these called, actually? Medical room. Okay, so make sure you've got at least one of those set up for at least your faction, or share with everybody, whatever. Otherwise, you're sitting on a permadeath situation to where once you die, all of your stuff can't be interacted with. Unless, and who would ever want to do this, but unless you went through and removed everything with a computer component and rebuilt it. You could do that too, and essentially you're hacking it and turning it into your own block. Doable, highly annoying compared to just setting up a main respawn point or having a faction one or whatever. Or if nothing else, just make sure you have a personal one. Even if your faction doesn't want main faction room, make a personal med room, but just make sure you got something that you can respawn in so that you don't lose all of your stuff, or at least have to go back and hack it all. So I think I covered everything. The whole faction system is new. They did say this is the first iteration of it. They are planning on making changes or adding to the system, so if there's something that bothers you or you dislike or something, don't freak out, basically. Because it's like, you know, the game itself is still in an alpha state, but the faction system is very much in an alpha state, so this is the first form, I believe is how they put it, of the faction system. So I think I covered everything. I know it's a lot of little nitty-gritty. Like I said, there's not a whole lot to show because they didn't add like new blocks or anything like that, but there's a lot of new systems in play. Particularly the ownership thing is changing a lot of things on how you set up and what you want to do when you build things. So I think I covered all that. I hope I got it all right. Be sure to double check the changelog on Keen Software House's forums and check out their own update video if you want a more professional, if you will, straight from the devs on explaining it all. I think I got it all covered and squared away. I hope it wasn't too confusing or didn't mess anyone up. So in the meantime, I think we're going to end the episode here. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, and I will see you all next time. Peace! Oh, side note, sorry, episode's not over. There's one thing, they didn't list everything in the log here for some reason. Another thing that they added, just a quick little thing I forgot to mention, was that when you make a beacon, there is now a beacon radius to where you can see that says beacon 2 there. if you go over here and you set it to 0, now I can't see it until you're 0 meters away, which I don't think you ever get to because it's big. But if we did, let's say 10, that's pretty good. So I can't see it. Now I can see it. So that's a new feature as well, and I also forgot to go over the founder situation with the factions. The founder can leave a faction. You cannot promote anyone to a founder. A founder is only made by being the one that made the faction in the first place, but if the founder leaves the faction doesn't automatically go away. The faction will only go away if every single member leaves. So even if the founder leaves and all 5 of the leaders leave and there's 2 members left, the faction is still in play. They can't promote themselves up to being leaders or so forth, but the faction still exists until the other 2 final members leave, and then the faction will actually go away. So that was one thing I also forgot to mention. So, yeah. So now we've covered everything, I hope. If I forgot anything, just let me know in the comments or something like that. So again, I will see you all next time. Peace.